Imagine being a medieval pilgrim in 1150, carrying everything you own in gold across 3 countries of bandits and hostile terrain, knowing that a single robbery means you never see Jerusalem alive. Then a warrior monk in a white mantle hands you a revolutionary solution. Deposit your fortune in Paris and withdraw it safely in Jerusalem without carrying a single coin across those dangerous roads. All you need is a parchment document, a wax seal, and absolute faith in the most trusted brand name the medieval world had ever produced. 1. In 1119, 9 French knights moved into the royal stables beneath Jerusalem's Temple Mount and named their new order the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. For their first 9 years, the Brotherhood survived entirely on charitable donations from admiring European nobles, bound every member to a strict collective vow of absolute poverty, and patrolled the lethal pilgrimage roads to the Holy City on horseback. They called themselves poor while permanently occupying the most symbolically sacred piece of real estate in the entire known medieval world. 2. In 1129, Abbot Bernard of Clairvaux endorsed the Templars at the Council of Troyes, drafting their 72-clause Latin rule and declaring them God's perfect warriors, combining monastic vows with battlefield ferocity, in a way no institution in medieval Christendom had previously imagined or dared to attempt. The 1139 papal bull Omni Datum Optimum then granted the Templars total exemption from paying taxes to any secular ruler, bishop, or crown anywhere in the known world. That is not a religious brotherhood. That is a tax-exempt global corporation, operating behind a full divine liability shield that no earthly ruler could legally challenge. 3. Every Templar who joined the order donated his entire personal estate to the Brotherhood upon entry, creating a paradox where men individually bound by vows of poverty were collectively accumulating enormous donated fortunes from Europe's wealthiest noble families. By the mid-12th century, this mechanism had transformed the order from 9 charity-dependent knights into one of the largest landowners in Europe, generating vast annual income from thousands of agricultural estates across France, England, and the Iberian Peninsula. The Templars built the first documented institutional structure where every individual member is technically broke, but the organization grows staggeringly rich. 4. Around 1150, the Templars introduced a system allowing pilgrims to deposit gold at any European preceptory and withdraw equivalent funds in Jerusalem through a parchment letter of credit verified by matching records and authenticated seals. The physical gold stayed locked in the originating vault while only the document traveled, eliminating the need to carry any currency across thousands of miles of bandit-controlled territory between continental Europe and the Levant. A monk accountant in 12th century Jerusalem was essentially processing international wire transfers on vellum, which means the Templars built the functional backbone of modern banking roughly 800 years before the internet existed. 5. The Christian Church explicitly banned usury, any form of interest on loans, which created an immediate structural problem for an organization trying to generate profit from a growing international credit network that served kings and pilgrims alike. The Templars resolved this through elegant legal creativity by retaining legal ownership of pledged property and charging rental fees for its continued use, a structure technically compliant with canon law while being functionally identical to charging interest on every single transaction. Islamic finance reinvented the exact same legal workaround 8 centuries later, and nobody in medieval Europe seemed to notice the Templars had already filed the patent. 6. By the mid-12th century, European monarchs were regularly depositing royal tax revenues and managing state finances directly through the established Templar banking network, treating the order as a trusted international treasury with unmatched institutional reach. Henry II of England deposited his royal taxes in London and withdrew them in France, while Philip II of France entrusted significant portions of the royal treasury directly to Templar management throughout his long reign. The kings of Europe were outsourcing their national finances to a military order that answered only to the Pope, the medieval equivalent of contracting your national treasury to a sovereign hedge fund. 7. The Templars' Paris Temple became the official financial headquarters of the French monarchy, with Templar administrators collecting royal taxes and managing the crown's accounts across the entire kingdom for generations of French kings. At its institutional peak, the Paris Temple functioned as France's de facto central bank, holding crown jewels as loan collateral during particularly dire financial crises and managing credit operations across multiple sovereign royal accounts simultaneously. The French government handed its national financial keys to a religious military order that reported to Rome and not to Paris, which will matter very enormously in approximately 150 years. 8. By the early 13th century, the Knights Templar held approximately 9,000 manors and agricultural estates across Europe and the Holy Land, maintained a substantial private naval fleet of merchant and military vessels, and owned direct sovereignty over the strategically vital island of Cyprus. Their combined annual income exceeded that of most individual European monarchies. The order ran its own hospitals and ecclesiastical courts and answered to no secular authority anywhere in the entire world. The Templars had become, entirely by accident and with sincere religious intentions, the largest and most powerful multinational corporation the medieval world had ever produced, without a single shareholder meeting. 9. The Templar Battlefield Code, codified in the 72-clause Latin rule, explicitly forbade any knight from retreating from combat unless the enemy numerically outnumbered his entire unit by a ratio of at least 3-to-1 in active engagement. This created frontline shock troops with a unique structural psychological advantage over every opponent they faced. Men who could not legally flee even when almost certain to die in the engagement unfolding directly around them. Modern militaries spend millions training soldiers to suppress the natural self-preservation instinct. The Templars just passed a bylaw making tactical retreat institutionally illegal. 10. In 1291, Egyptian Mamluk forces under Sultan Khalil destroyed the fortified port city of Acre, the last significant Crusader stronghold in the Holy Land, killing hundreds of Templar knights in its catastrophic final defense and ending 2 centuries of Christian territorial presence in the Levant. This left the Templars as a massively wealthy, internationally powerful institution with an enormous accumulated infrastructure but suddenly no operational founding purpose left to justify their continued existence and remarkable privileges. Every institution that outlives its original purpose either transforms completely or gets consumed by the people who always coveted its resources, and the Templars were about to discover which fate awaited them. 11. Philip IV of France, known as Philip the Fair, a reference exclusively to his physical appearance rather than any comment on his personal ethics, had an established and well-practiced pattern of eliminating creditors rather than actually repaying what he owed them. In 1306, he expelled France's entire Jewish community to cancel his accumulated debts to Jewish lenders, and had already conducted identical asset confiscations, targeting Lombard banking families operating throughout his territory. The Templars were not facing an unusual political enemy. They were facing a serial predator who had refined his methodology twice already and was now pointing it at the wealthiest single target on the entire European continent. 12. In September 1307, Philip IV distributed secret sealed orders to every royal agent across France, meticulously scheduling a simultaneous coordinated dawn arrest of every Templar in the entire kingdom for exactly 1 month later, without any advance warning to the targets. The charges written into those orders included heresy, devil worship, denial of Christ, and obscene initiation rituals. A carefully selected menu of accusations, calibrated to guarantee maximum outrage from a deeply superstitious medieval public. Philip had prepared not just the arrests but the narrative, because the person who controls the story controls the verdict, and a king who owes money writes the charges himself. 13. On Friday, October 13th, 1307, Philip's agents simultaneously arrested over 600 Templars across France before dawn, including Grandmaster Jacques de Molay and the Order's treasurer, all captured in a single coordinated pre-dawn operation. Among those arrested were not only fighting knights but hundreds of middle-aged accountants, farm administrators, and financial managers, the entirely mundane staff of an international banking network that happened to also field soldiers. Friday the 13th has been considered culturally unlucky ever since that particular morning in 1307. And if a coordinated government seizure confiscated everything you owned before breakfast, you would probably find the date rather memorable too. 14. Under systematic Inquisition torture, including the strappado, which suspended prisoners by their bound wrists until their shoulders dislocated from their sockets, hundreds of Templars signed confessions within weeks to crimes they almost certainly never committed under any rational circumstances. These confessions included spitting on the cross, conducting secret sexual initiation rituals, and worshipping a mysterious severed head called the Baphomet. A list of accusations spectacularly calibrated to outrage a superstitious and largely illiterate medieval public. Medieval prosecutors invented torture confessions long before authoritarian governments branded the technique as modern innovation. The Templars were just unfortunate enough to become the institutional test case that made the practice fashionable. 15. Pope Clement V owed his papal election almost entirely to Philip IV's direct political intervention, and had already relocated the papacy from Rome to Avignon in southern France, where Philip could maintain continuous personal pressure on every significant ecclesiastical decision throughout the entire Templar trial. When Clement initially showed hesitation, Philip threatened to posthumously prosecute his predecessor, Pope Boniface VIII, for heresy, a move that confirmed to Clement precisely how dispensable papal authority had become under direct French royal control. The head of the Catholic Church was essentially operating as a regional vice president of the French crown, which raises genuinely uncomfortable questions about who was actually running medieval Europe's most powerful institution. 16th. Jacques de Molay, the 23rd and final Grand Master of the Knights Templar, was approximately 64 years old when Philip's agents arrested him on the morning of October 13, 1307, just days after Philip had personally invited him to Paris under diplomatic pretenses. Under extensive torture, he confessed to the fabricated charges, spent 7 full years imprisoned in Paris, then in 1314 publicly revoked every single confession before a pair of papal cardinals and declared all charges completely and demonstrably false. Philip had personally invited de Molay to Paris for a diplomatic meeting days before the arrest, a detail that confirms premeditation of a particularly cold and calculating variety. 17. At the Council of Vienne in 1312, Pope Clement formally dissolved the Knights Templar by papal decree without ever officially declaring them guilty of the original charges, a legal distinction that mattered very little since Philip had already seized most of their French assets and imprisoned their entire leadership. The Templars' vast property portfolio officially transferred to the rival Knights Hospitaller, though Philip ensured a significant portion remained in French royal hands, and the entire Templar naval fleet vanished from every European port simultaneously and was never officially traced to any known destination. Someone sailed an entire military fleet somewhere in 1307 and simply never mentioned it to anyone again. A detail historians find puzzling and conspiracy theorists find absolutely irresistible. 18. On March 18, 1314, de Molay was bound to an execution pyre on the Île des Juifs, a small island in the Seine River directly opposite the gardens of Notre Dame Cathedral, before a gathered Parisian crowd of witnesses. His pyre had been deliberately constructed to burn as slowly as possible, maximizing the duration of suffering rather than ensuring a merciful death, and eyewitnesses recorded that de Molay, 70 years old and tortured for 7 years, showed absolutely no sign of fear. A man who had spent 7 years imprisoned and tortured by the most powerful monarch in Europe, and his final public act was to face his executioner with total composure and deliver a prophecy. 19. As the flames rose around him on the Île des Juifs, de Molay reportedly called out a formal curse directed at King Philip IV and Pope Clement V, summoning both men to appear before God's divine judgment within exactly 1 year and 1 day from the date of his execution. He declared additionally that Philip's royal bloodline would cease to reign over France entirely, an extraordinarily specific curse for a man allegedly dying for the crime of heresy, rather than the practice of prophecy delivered before hundreds of public witnesses. Whether you believe in medieval death curses or not, the historical record of what actually happened next is genuinely very difficult to explain away. 20. Pope Clement V, Philip's principal ecclesiastical instrument throughout the entire destruction of the Templars, died on April 20th, 1314. Exactly 33 days after de Molay's execution on the Île des Juifs. Clement's death was medically unsurprising given his years of documented illness, but its precise timing was noted without exception by virtually every contemporary European chronicler who recorded events during that particular spring. Philip's primary co-conspirator had died on the exact schedule that a burning 70-year-old Templar had publicly predicted, 33 days earlier, tied to a slow pyre in front of hundreds of witnesses. 21. King Philip IV died on November 29th, 1314, 8 months after de Molay's execution, suffering a sudden catastrophic stroke while hunting at Fontainebleau at the unexpectedly young age of 46, having shown no significant prior signs of terminal illness. Over the following 14 years, all 3 of Philip's sons inherited the French throne in direct succession, and each died childless, extinguishing the House of Capet, the ruling royal dynasty of France, for over 300 continuous years. De Molay's second stated prediction, that Philip's bloodline would reign in France no more, was fulfilled precisely and completely within exactly 14 years of his very public curse. 22. The Capetian line's total extinction in 1328 left Edward III of England as the strongest legitimate male claimant to the French throne, an outcome the French nobility refused to accept under any available legal framework or interpretation. In 1337, Edward formally asserted his claim to the French crown, launching the Hundred Years' War, a conflict that lasted until 1453, spanning 116 continuous years and killing hundreds of thousands of people across two nations and multiple generations. Philip IV borrowed money he never once intended to repay, and the direct cascading consequence of that single decision was a 100-year war that tore two nations apart for 5 successive generations.